I was pouring coffee when it happened. Not metaphorically, literally. Standing at the service credenza in Margaret Holt's boardroom, white shirt, dark trousers, coffee pot in both hands, when Raymond Goss slid the signed agreement across the table and said, "Gentlemen, Gallum Development Group has my full commitment, effective today." 14 people in that room. Every single one of them turned to look at me, the man pouring coffee. Margaret's face went completely still. My brother, Dale, sitting 3 chairs from Raymond, pushed his chair back exactly 1 inch. I set the coffee pot down on the credenza, straightened my jacket, and walked to the empty chair at Raymond's right. What none of them knew was I had been planning this moment since the night Dale slid that envelope across my kitchen table and told me to sign or lose everything. If you've ever been dismissed in a room you quietly owned, hit that like, subscribe to this channel, and don't move. My name is Roy Callum, 57 years old, Decatur, Alabama. 30 years ago, I built Callum Development Group from a folding table and a used laptop. No inheritance, no connections, just cold calls and handshakes that meant something. By 2018, I had closed $63 million in commercial real estate across 5 southeastern states. My brother Dale was my co-founder. 12 years side by side, every late night, every deal that almost didn't close but did because we refused to quit. Then in 2019, Dale signed a secret agreement with a competing firm, redirected 3 major client relationships, drained our operating account over 8 quiet months. When I found the paperwork, the damage was done. I didn't yell. I didn't call a lawyer that night. I sat at my kitchen table. Carol brought me coffee without being asked, same way she has done for 31 years of marriage. Put her hand on my shoulder for 3 seconds, then went back to the kitchen. That was all I needed. I picked up the phone and called Raymond Goss, 73 years old, 19-year business relationship, the kind of man whose handshake was worth more than any contract. "Raymond," I said, "I need 14 months. "You have them," he said. That was the last conversation Dale knew nothing about. But Dale wasn't finished yet. After I restructured quietly, Dale found himself without a firm to return to. He reached out to Margaret Holt, a competitor in the Southeast market who had been trying to poach our clients for years. She hired him as a junior broker. Fresh start, she called it. He called me once to tell me. I said congratulations and hung up. 6 weeks later, I walked into Margaret's office for a consulting role. Dale was standing at the coffee machine in the break room when I came through the door. He went pale. I shook his hand like we were strangers and introduced myself to the room. 3 months into that role, Dale came to my house on a Sunday evening. Carol had made her peach cobbler, the one she only makes when she knows something is wrong and doesn't want to say it out loud. It was on the counter when Dale knocked. He slid an envelope across my kitchen table. "Sign this, Roy," he said, "or I go to Raymond with what I know about the 2009 Meridian dispute." I need to explain what 2009 was, because Dale thought it was his best weapon. In 2009, a client named Meridian Properties accused our firm of misrepresenting square footage data in a commercial lease. It was a clerical error. Our paralegal had transposed 2 numbers. We caught it ourselves, corrected it, refunded the client's costs, and added a goodwill credit. No lawsuit, no finding of wrongdoing, clean resolution. But pulled out of context, it looked damaging. Dale knew that. What Dale didn't know was that I had told Raymond the full story 11 months earlier, sitting at Raymond's kitchen table in Birmingham over coffee and his wife's pound cake. Raymond had listened to every word, then said, "Roy, a man who fixes his mistakes before he's forced to, that's the only kind of man I do business with." Dale's best weapon was already empty before he walked through my door. I pushed the envelope back across the table. "You should have done your homework," I said. He didn't understand that yet. "Go home, Dale," I said quietly. He picked up the envelope and left. Carol came in from the living room, looked at the closed door, looked at me. "Cobbler's ready," she said. We ate it at that same kitchen table without talking about Dale. Talked about her sister's new house in Huntsville and whether the tide would cover the spread on Saturday. Some evenings are worth protecting. The next morning, I called Raymond. "It's time," I said. "I know," he said. "I've been ready for 3 months." Raymond and I had been building the Chattanooga project for 11 months, mixed-use commercial development, 18 months of groundwork before that, The kind of deal that needed one patient investor with deep pockets and no need for public attention. The signing was scheduled for Thursday morning. Clean, documented, final. But I asked Raymond for one more thing. "The week after we sign," I said, "Margaret Holt's firm is hosting a client strategy session. You are on her outreach list." Raymond was quiet for a moment. "You want me to attend," he said. "I want to let her think she has a chance, and I want to be the one serving coffee when you walk in." Raymond chuckled, the quiet kind that means he understood before I finished the sentence. "Roy," he said, "I've watched you build things for 19 years. I've watched people underestimate you for 19 years. If sitting in that room for 40 minutes gives you what you need, I'll bring my own cup." That was why Raymond agreed, not for strategy, not for leverage, because 19 years of watching a man work earns him one morning of watching justice land quietly in a boardroom. I had taken the consulting role at Margaret's firm deliberately. Not for income, because Dale was there. I wanted him comfortable, certain he had neutralized me, certain the man he had reduced to event support was no longer a threat. A man who thinks he has won stops watching. Dale had completely stopped watching. If you've ever let someone believe they had the upper hand just long enough, subscribe right now. This channel was built for people who understand that patience is the most dangerous thing in any room. The morning of Margaret's client session, I arrived early, set up the coffee station, confirmed catering, arranged the presentation materials on the credenza. Dale arrived at 8:45. Pressed suit, easy confidence. He saw me at the service credenza and nodded once, the way you nod at someone whose name you don't bother to remember. I nodded back. Raymond arrived at 9, shook Margaret's hand warmly, took his seat at the far end of the table. Margaret's presentation ran 40 minutes, every slide polished, every number precise. Her team had worked 3 weekends building it. Raymond listened, asked 2 questions, wrote nothing down. Then he reached into his briefcase and pulled out a single document, slid it across the table. "Before we continue," Raymond said, "I want to be transparent with this room. My Southeast portfolio commitment has already been finalized." Margaret's smile held, but her eyes changed. "I signed with Callum Development Group 4 days ago." He looked down the table, past Margaret, past the 40 slides, past Dale, directly at me, standing at the service credenza, coffee pot in hand. "Roy, would you like to take a seat?" I set the coffee pot down, straightened my jacket, and walked to the empty chair at Raymond's right. The room was completely silent. Margaret looked at me, really looked, for the first time since the day I walked into her office as a consultant. I watched her face move through surprise, then understanding, then something that looked very much like respect. She gave me one slow nod. I nodded back. Dale's chair moved back exactly 1 inch. Margaret closed the session with full composure, thanked Raymond, shook hands around the table, professional to the last second. As people filed out, she stopped beside me. "You could have told me," she said quietly. "Would it have changed how you treated me?" I asked. She thought about that honestly. "Probably not at first," she said. "Then you have your answer," I said. She nodded once more, then walked out. When the room emptied, Dale stayed in his chair. I stayed too. He looked at me across that long boardroom table. "The consulting job," he said, "the coffee, all of it." "Yes," I said. "You planned this." "I planned the deal," I said. "The rest was your choice." He looked at the credenza, the coffee pot sitting where I had left it. Then his face shifted, the same shift I had seen in our father's face the one time I watched him admit he was wrong. "Roy," his voice dropped completely, "I need to say something." I sat back. He leaned forward, both hands flat on the table, exactly the way our father used to sit when he meant every word. "I told myself I was protecting my share," he said. "I told myself you were pulling away. I told myself a lot of things." He stopped. "None of them were true. I was scared, and instead of telling you that, I just took. The Atlanta traffic moved quietly outside. I took from the one person who would have helped me if I had just asked. I looked at my brother, the same brother our father had asked me to look after. "You should have asked, Dale," I said. He nodded slowly, like a man setting down something he had carried too long. "I know," he said. "I know." We sat there until the catering staff came to clear the room. The Chattanooga deal closed fully 3 weeks later. $6.8 million, largest single closing in Callum Development Group's history. Raymond called after the wire cleared. "Your father would have liked this one," he said. "Yes, he would," I said. Dale left Margaret's firm the following week. He called in December, didn't ask for anything, said he was starting over, small firm, different city, clean slate. I listened to all of it. Then I said, "If you need a reference, call Raymond." Silence on the line. "Roy." "Don't waste it," I said. That night, Carol made her peach cobbler again. Same kitchen table, same 2 chairs. She talked about her sister's new grandbaby in Huntsville. I drank my coffee and listened. Some tables hold more than one kind of memory. The best ones hold both. That coffee pot is still in my memory, sitting on that credenza in the exact moment I set it down and walked to Raymond's right. 14 people watched a man they thought was serving coffee take a seat at the table he had quietly built. My father used to say, "The room doesn't decide your worth, your preparation does, and preparation is invisible right up until the moment it isn't." Margaret saw a man with a coffee pot. Then she saw the truth and gave it the respect that it deserved. Raymond saw a man with a $6.8 million deal already signed. He always had. Dale finally saw his brother clearly. 2 years too late, but not too late to matter. Same man, same morning, 3 completely different sets of eyes. If you have ever been dismissed in a room where you belonged, drop one word in the comments right now. Credenza. I read every single one. And if you believe that the most powerful move in any room is the one that was already made before anyone else sat down, subscribe to Insight Over Revenge. Hit that bell and share this story with someone who has been pouring coffee in a room where they deserve a seat at the table. This is where wisdom wins. See you in the next one.